Now we're ready to combine our main light and our fill light together. We've got to keep in mind, however, that our main light is set for f11 and our fill light is set for f5.6, and they're both going to be illuminating the same subject. So their two units of light are going to add together. So we have 1 unit of light at f11, 1 unit of light at 5.6. Together, those are going to give us a volume of light that's going to be greater than f11. Let's measure them and see where we're at. f11 and 2/10. So, can we get away with our lights being at f11 and 2/10, but our camera being set to f11? The answer is no. In the world of digital portraiture, we need to strive for excellence and control. If we're going to have our light value at f11 and 2, our camera at f11 0, we've got 2/10 of a stop overexposure. That's not going to give us those highlights that we're looking for or a nice clean midtone. We want to have our camera set to our working aperture and our meter to give us the same working aperture. So we need to reduce our light level because there's no way we can set our camera for f11 and 2/10 accurately. In order to do that, you can either turn down the power of your light pack system or you can gently move your light sources further away from the subject. Just be sure that you adjust your lights, if your main and your fill are independent controls, down in the same amount. So if you reduce this one by 1/10, reduce that one by 1/10. Remeter, see if you get the result that you're looking for. If you're going to move your lights back, make sure you move the fill light back 6 inches and the main light back 6 inches. Take another test pop, see where you are. Don't just move or adjust the power values of only one light source because that will disturb your lighting ratio. Until you gain command over exposures in your digital capture system, you may want to stick to using fixed focal length lenses instead of zoom or varifocal types. It's very difficult for a zoom lens to maintain a consistent aperture setting throughout the range of its zoom. Here's what I mean. If you were to take a zoom lens, set it to f11, you may find out that when you zoom it all the way out, it has an effective aperture of f8 and 2/3. In the middle of its zoom range, it may very well be at f11 0, but when you zoom it back, you may find out that it is f11 1/3. Even lenses that claim that they can maintain a consistent aperture setting really can't. So, fixed focal length lenses are certainly your most accurate way to get a good exposure while you're still getting in control. So let's make a digital capture image with just the main light and the fill light and zoom in on it to check to see if we have proper exposure. Looks like here we have some great highlight detail with plenty of separation. We've got good looking shadow detail here. And our midtone value looks great too. I'd say that this is a right-on exposure. Now if you're having a hard time judging exposure values on your digital capture files, you may want to take a more sophisticated approach. And that is to use a histogram. And a histogram is kind of a graphical representation of where all the tones in your image lie. You can learn more about histograms in our video called Pro Digital Basics. We have a whole chapter devoted to histograms and how to use them properly there. And one other tip. Don't forget that digital capture has a hard time with highlight detail. So don't misinterpret your files as being overexposed when in fact it's got good shadow detail and good midtone value, but the highlights are blown out. That may be a symptom of high contrast. Try using a larger light source that has lower contrast for your main light and see if that doesn't bring your highlight detail right back into play. Let's polish up the look and feel of our portrait by snapping our subject off the background with the use of a hair light and a background light. Take a look at this image with just the main and the fill, then see what happens when we add a hair light and a background light. Makes a world of difference. Starting with the hair light, you'll see that we've already got one in place here. This is the 16 by 22 inch softbox with a fabric grid in place to help reduce lens flare. What we're going to do is we're going to decide how much illumination that hair light needs to have. In a typical portrait setup for digital capture, you'll find out that a hair light like this one probably works best when it's one stop under our working aperture. So remember, our working aperture in this example is f11. Our main plus our fill are adjusted to give us a combination of those two lights at f11. But we decide we want to have our hair light at one stop less. So that is f8. But how do we measure it? We can't measure it from here because the hair light won't reach here. What we do is we put the meter in the part of our photograph that we want our most accurate exposure, and of course a hair light is going to light hair up here. So we will place our meter here and we're going to point it into the light this time. We'll take a test pop and we will adjust the power level of that hair light so that it has an illumination value of f80. That's one stop under our working aperture. Here's an image of just the hair light to show you what it looks like and what it contributes to the shot when it's underexposed by one stop. This is just a starting point. Try your hair light at one stop under your working aperture, and if you think it's still too prominent, reduce its light level even further. Try going down another half stop or a whole stop and see if that's where you prefer your hair lights. Or what if you like them to be a little more dominant and sparkly? Well, change to a parabolic reflector and try adding a little more contrast to those hair lights. But beware, digital capture has a hard time with highlight detail, so you're not going to want to make that too much brighter than maybe one stop under your working aperture. Metering your backgrounds is a cinch. You'll see that we've chosen to light up our background with this compact flash unit, fitted with a 7-inch parabolic bowl reflector with a 30-degree grid spot snapped in. This gives us that kind of tight round dot in the background that's going to help us define our image. How are we going to meter these? Couldn't be any easier. First of all, find out where the center of your background is when you look through the lens of your camera. Then, place your meter right there in that spot, point the dome back into the lens, and make a test pop. We like to try to make that illumination value match our working aperture. Well, in this case, it's f11.0. So in the middle of our background, we want to have a starting point of f11.0. So we'll adjust that background light up or down to get right at f11 and make a test exposure. One of the beautiful parts about shooting digital capture, certainly when you compare it to shooting film, is the immediacy of seeing the image. Now we can tell just when that image pops up on the screen or even sometimes on the back of the camera if our hair light needs to go down or our background light needs to go up, or if we need to change the shape or size of the grid spot or the light modifiers, not only on our background lights but every light source that's making the portrait. Digital capture has made portraiture faster, easier, and if you pay attention certainly to quality, better than shooting film. I think with the tips that we've given you here today, you'll be able to not only be more consistent with your exposures, but you're going to gain the confidence and be able to create the digital capture portraits you're looking for. Well, that wraps up our Level 1 video on digital portraiture lighting. I hope that you enjoyed watching it as much as we enjoyed making it, because we sure had a good time here. You'll notice that we labeled it Level 1 because it's a basics type of video. We plan on creating more videos, levels 1 through 5. So if you thought this was a little bit basic for you, be sure to check out levels 2 and greater. Also, if you still are thirsty for more digital photo information, don't forget we have a best-selling DVD called Pro Digital Basics. That's available through any authorized Mamiya dealer or online at various sources. You can learn about what's in Pro Digital Basics as well as our other video titles at ShootSmarter.com. Thank you much, and I'm sure we'll see you again.